Part 1. The Invisible Force. How Your Thoughts Shape Everything. What if I told you that the single biggest obstacle standing between you and the life you have always dreamed of is not your boss, not your bank account, not your circumstances, and not the economy? What if I told you that the one thing holding you back is something you carry with you every single second of every single day, something so close to you that you probably never even notice it? That obstacle is your own mind, your own thoughts. Right now, at this very moment, as you are listening to these words, your brain is running thousands of thoughts. Some of those thoughts are helping you, but many of them, maybe most of them, are quietly destroying your potential without you even realizing it. And here is the part that should really shake you. You did not choose most of those thoughts. They were planted in your mind by your past experiences, by your fears, by the people around you, and by years of mental habits that you never questioned. But what if you could change that? What if you could take control of the one thing that controls everything else in your life? That is exactly what Darius Foroux explores in his powerful book, Think Straight. And today, we are going to break down the biggest ideas from this book in a way that could genuinely transform how you see yourself, your mind, and your entire future. Trust me, by the time we are done, you will never look at your own thoughts the same way again. Now, before we dive deep, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had a moment where everything seemed to be going wrong? A moment where you felt stuck, frustrated, like no matter what you did, nothing worked? Maybe it was a relationship that fell apart. Maybe it was a career that hit a dead end. Maybe it was just this heavy feeling of being lost, not knowing where your life was heading. We have all been there, every single one of us. But here is what most people never realize about those dark moments. The darkness was not coming from outside. It was coming from inside. It was coming from the stories you were telling yourself, the narratives running on repeat in your mind. Sentences like, "I am not good enough. I will never figure this out. People like me do not get lucky. This always happens to me." As Darius Foroux points out in Think Straight, these are not just harmless words floating through your consciousness. These are programs. They are mental software running in the background of your mind, and they are shaping every decision you make, every action you take, and every result you get. And the wild thing is, most people go their entire lives without ever updating that software. So today, we are going to do something different. We are going to open up the hood of your mind. We are going to look at the engine that drives your entire life. And we are going to start making some serious upgrades using the principles that Foroux lays out in Think Straight. This is not about positive thinking in some shallow surface level way. This is not about pretending everything is fine when it is not. This is about understanding the real science-backed mechanics of how your thoughts create your reality, and then using that knowledge to build a life that actually excites you. A life where you wake up with energy and purpose instead of dread and anxiety. A life where you feel genuinely in control, not controlled. Let us start with the most fundamental truth that Think Straight reveals. Your thoughts are not just random electrical signals bouncing around in your skull. They are the architects of your reality. Every single thing in your life right now, your relationships, your career, your health, your happiness, your bank account, all of it is a direct reflection of the thoughts you have been thinking. Now, I know that might sound like an exaggeration. You might be thinking, come on, my thoughts did not cause my car to break down or my company to lay me off. And you are right. Your thoughts did not directly cause those specific events. But as Foroux explains, your thoughts determined how you responded to those events. Your thoughts determined whether you saw those moments as devastating endings or as difficult beginnings. Your thoughts determined whether you gave up or got up. And that response, that mental reaction, that is what ultimately shaped the trajectory of your life. Think about it this way. Two people can face the exact same situation and have completely different outcomes. Two people lose their jobs on the same day from the same company. One person goes home, sits on the couch, and spends the next 6 months spiraling into depression, telling themselves that they are worthless, that nobody wants them, that the world is unfair. The other person goes home, takes a deep breath, and starts thinking about what they really want to do with their life. They update their resume, they reach out to their network, they start learning new skills. 6 months later, the first person is still on that couch. The second person has a better job than the one they lost. Same situation, same circumstances, completely different outcomes. And the only difference between them was the thoughts they chose to think. This is one of the core messages of Think Straight. Your external circumstances do not define you. Your internal response does. Darius Foroux explains that our thoughts shape our reality through two powerful mechanisms. The first is through neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly changing, constantly rewiring itself based on the information and experiences it receives. When you repeatedly think certain thoughts, your brain physically restructures itself around those thoughts. Think of neural pathways like trails in a dense forest. The more you walk down a particular trail, the wider and clearer it becomes. The less you walk down a trail, the more it gets overgrown and eventually disappears. Your thoughts work the same way. When you repeatedly think negative thoughts like, I am a failure or I cannot do this, you are walking down those negative trails over and over again. You are making those pathways stronger, wider, more automatic. Eventually, those negative thoughts do not even feel like choices anymore. They feel like facts. They feel like reality. But they are not reality. They are just well-worn paths in your brain. The second mechanism, as Foroux describes in Think Straight, is through your actions. Your thoughts directly inspire your actions. If you believe you can accomplish something, you are far more likely to actually try. On the other hand, if you believe you will fail, you will not even bother making the effort. And here's where it gets really interesting. The book shares examples of people who used the power of their thoughts to overcome extraordinary challenges. There was someone who fought cancer by telling themselves that they were bigger than the disease, that they would not be defined by a diagnosis. And there was someone who achieved remarkable success in business by constantly reinforcing the belief that they were unstoppable. Now, these are not fairy tales. These are real demonstrations of what happens when you take conscious control of your thoughts and direct them with intention and purpose. And here is the beautiful flip side of the neural pathway concept. When you start deliberately choosing different thoughts, when you start walking down new trails, your brain begins to change. Those old negative pathways start to weaken. new positive pathways start to form, it does not happen overnight. It takes consistency and patience, but it happens. The science is crystal clear on this. Your brain can change at any age, at any stage of life. And it means that no matter how long you have been stuck in negative thinking patterns, you have the power to create new ones. But we will get deeper into the science of neuroplasticity a little later. For now, just understand this one crucial point that Foroux emphasizes throughout Think Straight. Your thoughts are not fixed. Your mind is not set in stone. And the life you're living right now is not the only life available to you. Now let me tell you about something that might be the most important concept in this entire discussion. It is the idea of limiting beliefs. And honestly, understanding this one concept can change your life more than reading 100 books. So, what exactly are limiting beliefs? According to Think Straight, they are deeply held assumptions about yourself and the world that feel absolutely true, but are actually holding you back. They are the invisible chains that keep you trapped in a life that is smaller than what you are capable of. And the most dangerous thing about limiting beliefs is that you usually do not even know you have them. They operate below the surface of your conscious awareness, silently directing your choices and behaviors without you ever questioning them. Darius Foroux encourages us to ask ourselves some honest questions. Do you often use phrases like, "I cannot," or "this is too difficult for me"? Do you frequently fear failure and avoid taking risks? Do you criticize yourself harshly and downplay your successes? Do you compare yourself to others and often feel like you are not enough? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then chances are you have limiting beliefs that need to be identified and transformed. And the truth is, most of us would answer yes to at least one or two of these. That is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be aware of, because awareness is the first step toward change. Let me give you an example that really shows how destructive limiting beliefs can be. There was a young woman. Let us call her Sarah. Sarah grew up in a household where money was always tight. Her parents constantly argued about bills. She heard phrases like, "Money does not grow on trees," and "we cannot afford that" hundreds of times throughout her childhood. By the time Sarah was a teenager, she had formed a deep limiting belief. She believed that money was scarce, that financial struggle was normal, and that people like her family were simply not meant to be wealthy. Now, fast forward 20 years. Sarah is an adult with a decent job. She makes a reasonable salary, but somehow she is always broke. She cannot save money. Every time she gets a little bit ahead, something happens and the money disappears. She tells herself it is bad luck. She tells herself it is the economy. But here is what is really happening. Her limiting belief about money is running the show. Deep down, she believes she is supposed to struggle financially. So she unconsciously makes choices that keep her in financial struggle. She spends impulsively. She avoids looking at her bank account. She turns down opportunities that could increase her income because deep down she does not believe she deserves financial abundance. The belief came first. The reality followed. But here is the good news. Think Straight gives us practical strategies to break free from these mental prisons. The process starts with challenging your thoughts. When a negative thought appears, question it. Ask yourself, is there solid evidence behind this belief, or is it just a feeling I have gotten used to? Next, Practice being kind to yourself. Instead of harsh self-criticism, talk to yourself the way you would talk to a close friend who was struggling. You would not tell your friend they are stupid or worthless. So why do you say those things to yourself? Then, give yourself positive affirmations. Remind yourself regularly that you are capable, that you are worthy, that you have what it takes. And finally, set small, achievable goals and accomplish them. Every small win builds your confidence. Every completed goal sends a message to your brain that says, "See, I can do this." And as those small wins stack up, you will find yourself inspired to go after bigger and bigger goals. Let me share another example that really drives this home. Consider two students preparing for a major exam. Both are struggling with the material. Both are feeling stressed and overwhelmed. The first student thinks, "I am so stupid. I will never understand this. I am going to fail no matter what I do." What happens next? Their brain literally shuts down the learning centers. Stress hormones flood their system. Their memory gets worse. Their ability to focus decreases. They start avoiding studying because it feels hopeless. And guess what? They fail the exam. Not because they were actually incapable of learning the material, but because their thoughts created a biological response that made learning nearly impossible. The second student thinks, "This is really challenging, but I have gotten through hard things before. I need to break this down into smaller pieces and take it one step at a time." What happens? Their brain stays in learning mode. They feel stressed but not hopeless. They keep showing up, keep studying, keep trying different approaches, and they pass the exam. Same material, same level of difficulty, completely different outcomes, and it all started with a thought. This is why Darius Foroux keeps coming back to this fundamental principle in Think Straight. Your thoughts are not just background noise. They are not just idle chatter in your head. They are commands. They are instructions that your brain follows with remarkable precision. When you think "I cannot," your brain hears that as a command and starts shutting down the very capabilities you need. When you think "I will find a way," your brain hears that as a command and starts activating your creativity, your problem-solving abilities, your resilience. You are always giving your brain instructions. The question is, are you giving it instructions that serve you or instructions that sabotage you? Now here is a framework from Think Straight that can help you start dismantling your limiting beliefs right away. Step 1. Listen to your inner dialogue. For the next week, pay close attention to the things you say to yourself, especially when you face challenges or new opportunities. Notice the automatic thoughts that pop up. Write them down. Every single one. Do not judge them. Just observe and record. Step 2. Question every single one of those thoughts. For each negative thought you recorded, ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is there concrete evidence that this is true? What evidence exists that contradicts this belief? And how would my life be different if I did not believe this? Step 3. Create a replacement belief. For every limiting belief you identify, create a new, more empowering belief to replace it. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about choosing a more accurate and helpful interpretation of reality. Instead of, "I am terrible at public speaking," try, "I am still developing my public speaking skills and I get better every time I practice." Instead of, "I am not smart enough to start a business," Try I have the ability to learn what I need to know, and I can figure things out as I go. Step 4, and this is where the real transformation begins. Act as if. Start making decisions and taking actions that align with your new beliefs, even if the old beliefs are still screaming in the background. If your new belief is, I am a confident person, start doing things that a confident person would do. Speak up in meetings. Make eye contact. Share your ideas without apologizing. Your brain does not know the difference between real confidence and practice confidence. All it knows is the behavior. And the more you behave in alignment with your new beliefs, the more your brain will rewire itself to support those beliefs. This is neuroplasticity in action. This is you literally reshaping your brain by choosing different thoughts and different actions. Now, I want to address something important before we move on. Some of you might be thinking, okay, this sounds great in theory, but my problems are real. My struggles are not just in my head. I have real obstacles, real challenges, real limitations. And I hear you completely. Foroux is not saying that your problems are not real. Of course they are. What Think Straight teaches us is that your interpretation of those problems, the story you tell yourself about those problems, has a massive impact on how you deal with them and whether you ultimately overcome them. There is a massive difference between this is a difficult situation and I need to find a way through it, and this is impossible and I am stuck forever. Both sentences acknowledge the difficulty, but one opens doors and the other slams them shut. One keeps your brain in problem-solving mode and the other puts your brain in shutdown mode. And the choice between those two responses is entirely up to you. So before we move on to the next section, I want you to do something right now. I want you to think about one limiting belief that you have been carrying. Just one. Maybe it is about your intelligence, your appearance, your worthiness, your capabilities, or your future. Whatever it is, hold it up to the light and really examine it. Ask yourself, is this belief helping me or hurting me? Is this belief moving me toward the life I want or away from it? And if the answer is that this belief is hurting you, make a decision right now, in this moment, that you are going to start the process of letting it go. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because, as Darius reminds us in Think Straight, every moment you spend carrying a limiting belief is a moment you spend living a smaller life than you were meant to live. And you, my friend, were not meant for a small life. Now here's where things get really fascinating. In the next section, we are going to dive deep into the science of neuroplasticity, the incredible ability of your brain to literally rewire itself at any age. And we are going to explore practical techniques for developing the kind of self-awareness that allows you to catch negative thoughts before they take root and replace them with thoughts that actually serve your goals and your dreams. Trust me, what comes next will change the way you think about thinking itself. Part 2, Rewiring Your Brain, the Science of Neuroplasticity and the Art of Self-Awareness. Now that we understand how powerful our thoughts truly are and how limiting beliefs can quietly sabotage every area of our lives, it is time to explore something that will absolutely blow your mind. And I mean that quite literally, because what we are about to discuss is the science of how your brain physically changes based on what you think, what you do, and what you pay attention to. This is not philosophy. This is not guesswork. This is hard, proven neuroscience. And once you understand it, you will realize that you have far more control over your life than you ever imagined. Darius Foroux dedicates a significant portion of Think Straight to this topic because it is truly the foundation of everything else. If you understand how your brain works, you can work with your brain instead of against it. And most people, whether they realize it or not, are working against their own brains every single day. They are feeding their minds junk thoughts the same way someone feeds their body junk food. And then they wonder why they feel mentally exhausted, emotionally drained, and stuck in the same cycles year after year. But that ends today, because knowledge is power, and the knowledge we are about to explore is some of the most empowering information you will ever encounter. So let us talk about neuroplasticity. The word itself might sound complicated, but the concept is beautifully simple. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change, adapt, and reorganize itself throughout your entire life. For a long time, scientists believed that the brain was essentially fixed after a certain age. They thought that once you reached adulthood, your brain was done developing, and whatever mental habits, abilities, and limitations you had were permanent. But that old theory has been completely shattered by modern neuroscience. We now know with absolute certainty that your brain never stops changing. It never stops growing. It never stops forming new connections. Whether you are 15 or 50 or 85, your brain is capable of remarkable transformation. And the thing that drives that transformation more than anything else is your thoughts and your behaviors. Let me explain how this works in a way that really sticks. Imagine your brain as an incredibly vast city. The roads in this city represent your neural pathways, the connections between different brain cells that allow information to flow. Now, some of these roads are massive highways. They are wide, well-paved, and traffic flows through them effortlessly. These highways represent your strongest habits, your deepest beliefs, and your most automatic thought patterns. You have been driving down these roads for years, maybe decades, so they are extremely well developed. Other roads in this city are tiny, barely visible dirt paths. These represent new skills you have not yet developed, new ways of thinking you have not yet explored, and new habits you have not yet formed. They exist as possibilities, but they are not yet strong enough to carry much traffic. Now, here is where it gets exciting. Every time you think a new thought, learn something new, or practice a new behavior, you are essentially sending construction crews to work on those tiny dirt paths. With repetition and consistency, those dirt paths start to widen. They get paved. They become smoother and easier to travel. Eventually, with enough practice and repetition, those once tiny paths can become highways themselves. And here is the equally important flip side. When you stop using certain neural pathways, when you stop thinking certain thoughts or engaging in certain behaviors, those highways start to deteriorate. They crack, they narrow, they get overgrown. This is your brain's way of being efficient. It strengthens the connections you use most and weakens the connections you no longer need. Foroux emphasizes this principle throughout Think Straight because it carries an incredibly empowering message. You are not stuck with the brain you have right now. You are not stuck with the thought patterns you have right now. You are not stuck with the habits, the fears, or the limitations you have right now. All of those things are neural pathways, and all neural pathways can be changed. But let me be real with you for a moment. Changing your neural pathways is absolutely possible, but it is not easy. And anyone who tells you that you can completely transform your thinking overnight is not being honest with you. Those old highways in your brain, those deeply ingrained patterns of negative thinking, self-doubt, and fear, they took years to build. They are strong. They are familiar. And your brain actually prefers them because familiar paths require less energy to travel. This is why changing your thoughts can feel so uncomfortable at first. When you try to think differently, when you try to replace a negative thought with a positive one, your brain initially resists. It feels awkward, forced, even fake. And that is the moment where most people give up. They think, this does not feel natural, so it must not be working. But here's what Darius Foroux wants you to understand. That discomfort is not a sign that it is not working. That discomfort is the exact sign that it is working. That awkward, uncomfortable feeling is the feeling of new neural pathways being formed. It is the feeling of construction crews building new roads in your brain. And if you push through that discomfort, if you keep practicing those new thoughts and new behaviors day after day, week after week, something remarkable happens. Those new pathways get stronger, they get easier to travel, and eventually the positive thought becomes just as automatic as the negative one used to be. Think Straight outlines several practical ways to harness the power of neuroplasticity in your daily life. The first is learning new skills, and I cannot stress this enough. Learning is one of the single most powerful things you can do for your brain at any age. It does not matter what you learn. It could be a new language. It could be a musical instrument. It could be coding, cooking, painting, dancing, chess, or anything else that challenges your brain in new ways. When you learn something new, your brain responds by creating new neural connections and strengthening existing ones. It literally builds new infrastructure, and this does not just make you better at the specific skill you are learning. It makes your entire brain more flexible, more adaptable, and more capable of change in every area of your life. So if you have been telling yourself that you are too old to learn something new, I need you to let go of that belief right now. Your brain does not have an expiration date. It does not have a use-by label. It is ready and willing to learn and grow at any stage of your life if you give it the chance. The second way to harness neuroplasticity, and this connects directly to what we discussed in the previous section, is changing your thought patterns. Foroux explains in Think Straight that your thoughts physically affect your brain. Every negative thought you think reinforces a neural pathway that makes future negative thoughts more likely. And every positive thought you think reinforces a pathway that makes future positive thoughts more likely. This means that changing your thinking is not just a psychological exercise. It is a biological one. You are literally changing the physical structure of your brain every time you choose a different thought. When you catch yourself thinking something negative and deliberately replace it with something more constructive, you are not just putting a band-aid on a bad mood. You are performing surgery on your own brain. You are weakening the pathways of negativity and strengthening the pathways of possibility. The third way to use neuroplasticity to your advantage is by building new habits. As Foroux points out, habits are really just well-established neural pathways. When you do something over and over again, the neural pathway for that behavior becomes so strong that the behavior becomes almost automatic. This is why bad habits are so hard to break. The pathways are deeply carved into your brain, but the same principle that makes bad habits sticky also works in your favor when you want to create good habits. Every time you practice a new habit, you are carving a new pathway. And the more you practice, the deeper that pathway becomes, until eventually the new habit feels just as natural and automatic as the old one. Breaking old habits and forming new ones is absolutely challenging. Foroux never pretends otherwise, but it is 100% possible, and it gets easier with time because the science is on your side. The fourth strategy Think Straight recommends is challenging your brain regularly. Your brain is like a muscle. If you do not use it, it weakens. If you challenge it, it grows stronger. Doing puzzles, exploring new places, reading books on topics outside your comfort zone, engaging in stimulating conversations, all of these activities keep your brain sharp and promote neuroplasticity. They force your brain to form new connections, to think in new ways, to stay flexible and adaptable. And in a world that is changing faster than ever before, having a flexible, adaptable brain is not just a nice thing to have. It is essential. Now let us transition into something that Darius Foroux considers absolutely critical to the entire process of thinking straight, and that is self-awareness. If neuroplasticity is the engine of change, then self-awareness is the steering wheel. Without self-awareness, you cannot direct the change. You cannot choose which pathways to strengthen and which ones to weaken. You are just a passenger in your own mind, being carried along by whatever thoughts happen to show up. But with self-awareness, you become the driver. You get to choose where you are going. You get to decide which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones need to be redirected. So, what exactly is self-awareness in the context of Think Straight? It is the practice of observing your own thoughts and emotions without automatically reacting to them. It is the ability to step back from your inner experience and watch it with curiosity, instead of getting swept away by it. Think of it like watching a river from the bank instead of being caught in the current. When you are in the river, you have no control. The water carries you wherever it wants. But when you are on the bank, you can observe the water flowing by. You can see the patterns. You can notice which way the current is moving, and you can make conscious decisions about whether you want to step into the water or stay on solid ground. Most people spend their entire lives in the river. A negative thought pops up, and they immediately believe it and react to it. Someone cuts them off in traffic, and they are instantly furious for the next hour. They get a critical email from their boss, and they spend the rest of the day convinced they are about to be fired. They see someone on social media living an amazing life, and they immediately feel inadequate and depressed. There is no gap between the trigger and the reaction. It is all automatic. But Foroux teaches us in Think Straight that there is a space between a trigger and your response. And in that space lies your power. In that space, you get to choose. Do I want to react automatically, or do I want to respond intentionally? Do I want to let this thought control me, or do I want to acknowledge it and let it pass? That space, That tiny gap between stimulus and response is where self-awareness lives. And expanding that gap is one of the most valuable things you can do for your mental health, your relationships, your career, and every other area of your life. Foroux recommends several techniques for developing self-awareness. The first and perhaps most powerful is mindful meditation. Now, I know some of you might be rolling your eyes at this. Meditation can sound like something reserved for monks on mountaintops or wellness influencers on social media, but the reality is that meditation is simply the practice of paying attention to what is happening in your mind without judging it. You sit quietly, you notice your thoughts, and you let them pass without grabbing onto them. That is it. And the research on meditation is staggering. Regular meditation practice has been shown to physically increase the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, self-control, and rational thinking. It reduces activity in the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that triggers fear and anxiety responses. It improves focus, emotional regulation, and even immune function. You do not need to meditate for hours. Even 10 minutes a day can produce measurable changes in your brain. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The second technique, Think Straight, recommends for building self-awareness is journaling. Writing down your thoughts forces you to slow down and examine them in a way that simply thinking about them does not. When a thought is just floating around in your head, it can feel overwhelming, chaotic, and impossible to manage. But when you write it down on paper, something shifts. The thought becomes external. It becomes an object you can look at, examine, and evaluate. You can ask yourself, is this thought true? Is this thought helpful? Is this thought based on evidence or on fear? Journaling also helps you spot patterns over time. You might notice that you always feel anxious on Sunday nights, or that you always criticize yourself after talking to a specific person, or that you tend to spiral into negativity when you are tired or hungry. These patterns are incredibly valuable because once you see them, you can start to address them proactively instead of just reacting to them after the fact. The third technique Foroux suggests is the practice of labeling your emotions. This might sound almost too simple to be effective, but the science behind it is remarkable. When you feel a strong emotion, simply naming that emotion out loud or in your mind significantly reduces its intensity. This is because the act of labeling engages your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part of your brain, which helps to calm down the amygdala, the emotional reactive part. So instead of being overwhelmed by a wave of anxiety, you pause and say to yourself, I am feeling anxious right now. That simple act of naming creates distance between you and the emotion. It transforms you from someone who is anxious into someone who is experiencing anxiety. And that distinction makes all the difference. Because when you are anxious, the anxiety is your entire reality. But when you are someone who is experiencing anxiety, you are a person who is bigger than the emotion. The emotion is something happening to you, not something you are. Now, here is something that Darius Foroux addresses in Think Straight that I think is incredibly important and often overlooked. He talks about how we carry around negative thoughts, not just about ourselves, but about the world around us. We tell ourselves that people cannot be trusted, that the world is unfair, that good things never last, that something bad is always around the corner, these thoughts might feel like wisdom, like hard-earned lessons from a difficult life. But in reality, they are just more limiting beliefs dressed up as street smarts, and they are just as damaging as the limiting beliefs we hold about ourselves. When you believe the world is hostile, you act defensively. You push people away. You miss opportunities. You live in a constant state of low-level fear and suspicion. And the world responds accordingly, not because it is actually hostile, but because your defensive behavior creates the very hostility you were afraid of. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Think Straight encourages us to challenge these worldview beliefs with the same rigor we apply to our self-beliefs. Is the world really as dangerous as you think? Are people really as untrustworthy as you believe? Or have you been filtering your experiences through a lens of fear and only seeing what confirms your negative expectations? Foroux also makes a point that I find deeply compassionate and important. He says that developing self-awareness is not about judging your thoughts as good or bad. It is about observing them with neutral curiosity. Too many people hear about self-awareness and turn it into another weapon for self-criticism. They start monitoring their thoughts and then beating themselves up every time they catch a negative one. Oh no, there I go again with the negative thinking. What is wrong with me? Why can I not think positively? This is completely counterproductive. It is like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. The goal of self-awareness is not to eliminate negative thoughts entirely. That is neither possible nor desirable. Negative thoughts serve a purpose. They alert us to potential dangers and problems that need our attention. The goal is to notice your thoughts without being controlled by them, to see them clearly without being consumed by them, to have the freedom to choose which thoughts you want to act on and which ones you want to acknowledge and release. That is true mental freedom, and that is what Think Straight is ultimately about. Let me give you a practical example of how self-awareness works in everyday life. Imagine you are at work and your boss sends you an email that says, "We need to talk about your recent project." Now, if you have low self-awareness, your brain immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion. Oh no, they hated it. I am in trouble. Maybe I am going to get fired. Your heart starts racing. Your palms get sweaty. You spend the next 2 hours in a state of panic, unable to focus on anything else. By the time you actually sit down with your boss, you are so stressed and defensive that the conversation goes poorly, even if your boss originally just wanted to give you some minor feedback and tell you what a good job you did. But if you have developed self-awareness through the practices we discussed, the same email triggers a completely different response. You read the email and you notice the initial spike of anxiety. But instead of getting swept away by it, you pause. You label the emotion. I am feeling anxious about this email. Then you question the thought. Is it definitely bad news? No, I do not actually know what the meeting is about. It could be positive feedback. It could be a new opportunity. Let me not jump to conclusions. You take a deep breath. You refocus on your work. And when you sit down with your boss, you are calm, open, and receptive. The conversation goes well. Same email, same situation. Completely different experience. And the only difference was the level of self-awareness you brought to the moment. This is the transformative power. that Darius Foroux is talking about in Think Straight. It is not about controlling every thought that enters your mind. That is impossible. It is about developing the awareness to recognize your thoughts for what they are. Just thoughts, not facts, not commands, not prophecies, just mental events that you have the power to observe, evaluate, and respond to thoughtfully. And the more you practice this awareness, the better you get at it. It becomes a skill, a mental muscle that grows stronger with use. Eventually, you develop an almost instinctive ability to catch unhelpful thoughts before they spiral out of control and redirect your mind toward more productive and empowering patterns. And when that happens, everything changes. Your stress levels drop. Your decision-making improves. Your relationships deepen. Your confidence grows. Your entire experience of life transforms. Not because your external circumstances changed, but because your internal response to those circumstances fundamentally shifted. Before we move on, let me leave you with one more insight from Think Straight that ties this all together. Foroux writes about the importance of understanding that you are not your thoughts. This might be the single most liberating idea in the entire book. You are the observer of your thoughts. You are the consciousness that watches thoughts come and go. And just as the sky is not defined by the clouds that pass through it, you are not defined by the thoughts that pass through your mind. Storms come and go, but the sky remains. Dark clouds appear, but they always move on. Your negative thoughts are like those clouds. They feel massive and overwhelming when they are directly above you, but they are temporary. They will pass. And behind them, the clear sky of your true self is always there, unchanged, unlimited, and full of possibility. In the next section, we are going to explore two powerful practices that Think Straight recommends for transforming your daily mental landscape. We will talk about the practice of gratitude and how it can literally rewire your brain for happiness. And we will dive into the art of visualization, a technique used by world-class athletes, successful entrepreneurs, and peak performers across every field. These are not abstract concepts. These are practical tools that you can start using today to create real, measurable changes in your life. And when you combine them with the neuroplasticity and self-awareness principles we have discussed so far, the results can be truly extraordinary. Part 3. The Gratitude Shift and the Vision. Blueprint. Rewiring your brain for happiness and achieving your biggest goals. We have covered some incredible ground so far. We have explored how your thoughts shape your reality, how limiting beliefs silently hold you back, how neuroplasticity gives you the power to rewire your brain at any age, and how self-awareness puts you in the driver's seat of your own mind. But now, we are going to take everything to the next level, because understanding how your mind works is only half the battle. The other half is knowing what to do with that understanding, and that is exactly what we are going to explore in this section. We are going to talk about two of the most powerful mental tools available to any human being on this planet. The first is gratitude. The second is visualization. And when you learn how to use these two tools together, combined with everything we have already discussed, you will have a mental toolkit that is more powerful than most people will ever possess. Let us start with gratitude, because Darius Foroux treats this topic in Think Straight with a level of seriousness that might surprise you. Most people think of gratitude as something nice, something pleasant, a warm, fuzzy feeling you get around the holidays when you count your blessings. But Foroux presents gratitude as something far more significant than that. He presents it as a deliberate mental practice that can fundamentally alter the way your brain processes information, the way you experience emotions, and the way you perceive the world around you. Gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a strategy. It is a tool. And when used consistently, it is one of the most effective ways to shift your default thinking from negative to positive. Here's why gratitude is so powerful from a neuroscience perspective. Your brain has something called a negativity bias. This means that your brain is naturally wired to pay more attention to negative experiences than positive ones. This makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors who paid close attention to threats and dangers were more likely to survive. The person who noticed the rustling in the bushes and immediately thought, "predator," lived to pass on their genes. The person who ignored the rustling and kept picking berries did not. So our brains evolved to be hyper-alert to anything negative, threatening, or potentially harmful. And while this was incredibly useful for survival in the wild, it creates a real problem in modern life. Because in today's world, the threats are not lions and tigers. The threats are emails from your boss, social media comparisons, financial worries, and relationship conflicts. But your brain treats them with the same urgency it would treat a predator. It locks onto the negative, amplifies it, and replays it on a loop. This is why you can receive 10 compliments and 1 criticism. And the criticism is the only thing you remember at the end of the day. Gratitude is the antidote to this negativity bias. When you deliberately practice gratitude, you are essentially training your brain to scan for positive experiences instead of negative ones. You are redirecting your brain's attention from what is wrong to what is right. And remember what we learned about neuroplasticity? The more you practice this redirection, the stronger the neural pathways for positive thinking become. Over time, your brain actually starts to default to a more positive perspective. Not because you are ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect, but because you are giving your brain a more balanced view of reality. Because the truth is, in any given moment, there are both positive and negative things happening in your life. Gratitude simply helps you see the full picture instead of just the dark corners. Think Straight offers several practical approaches to building a gratitude practice into your daily life. The first is keeping a gratitude journal. Now, this is not just about writing down, "I am grateful for my family," or "I am grateful for my health," over and over again. While those are certainly valid things to be grateful for, Foroux encourages a deeper, more specific approach. Instead of writing, "I am grateful for my health," try writing, "I am grateful that my body carried me through a long walk this evening, and that I could feel the cool breeze on my skin and hear the birds in the trees." The more specific and sensory you make your gratitude entries, the more powerfully they affect your brain. Because specificity forces your brain to actually relive the experience, which strengthens the positive neural pathways associated with that memory. Try to write down at least 3 specific things you are grateful for every single day. And here is a key insight from Foroux. It does not matter how small they are. In fact, sometimes the smallest things carry the most power. A perfect cup of tea in the morning, a stranger who held the door open for you, the sound of rain against your window while you were warm inside. These tiny moments of beauty and kindness are happening all around you all the time. You just need to train your brain to notice them. The second approach to gratitude that Think Straight recommends is practicing real-time gratitude awareness throughout your day. This means deliberately paying attention to moments of goodness as they happen, not just reflecting on them later. When you take your first sip of coffee in the morning, pause for just a second and actually appreciate it. When someone smiles at you, let that warmth register. When you step outside and feel the sunlight on your face, take a breath and acknowledge how good that feels. These micro moments of gratitude might seem insignificant individually, but collectively, they transform your entire experience of daily life. They pull you out of the autopilot mode that most people live in, where you rush from task to task without ever actually experiencing anything, and they bring you into the present moment where life is actually happening. The third gratitude practice Foroux highlights is expressing gratitude to others. This is powerful on multiple levels. When someone does something kind for you, no matter how small, take a moment to genuinely thank them. Not a quick, perfunctory thanks thrown over your shoulder as you walk away, but a real eye contact, I really appreciate you moment. Tell your partner what you love about them. Tell your friend how much their support means to you. Send a message to a colleague letting them know that their work made a difference. These acts of expressed gratitude do not just make the other person feel good. They strengthen your relationships in profound ways. They create a positive feedback loop where kindness breeds more kindness, appreciation breeds more appreciation, and connection breeds deeper connection. Now, let us shift to the second major tool in this section, and it is one that Darius Foroux explores with real enthusiasm in Think Straight. Visualization. If gratitude changes how you perceive the present, visualization changes how you create the future. Visualization is the practice of creating detailed mental images of the outcomes you want to achieve. And before you dismiss this as wishful thinking or daydreaming, let me share something that will change your perspective entirely. Visualization works because of a fascinating quirk of neuroscience. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you visualize yourself giving a confident presentation, the same neural pathways fire in your brain as when you are actually giving that presentation. When you visualize yourself crossing the finish line of a marathon, your brain activates the same motor pathways that would be involved in actually running. In other words, visualization is not just imagining success, it is rehearsing success. It is giving your brain a practice run, building the neural infrastructure you will need when the real moment arrives. This is not some fringe theory. Visualization has been used by elite athletes, military strategists, world-class musicians, and top-performing executives for decades. Olympic athletes routinely visualize their performances in minute detail before competitions. Surgeons visualize complex procedures before stepping into the operating room. Concert pianists visualize their performances before walking on stage. And the research consistently shows that people who combine physical practice with mental visualization outperform those who rely on physical practice alone. Your brain is essentially a simulation machine, and visualization is the way you program it to simulate success instead of failure. Think Straight lays out a clear process for effective visualization. The first step is imagining your desired future in as much detail as possible. Close your eyes and create a vivid mental movie of what your life looks like when you have achieved your goals. But do not just see it. Feel it. Experience it with all of your senses. Where are you? What does the environment look like? What sounds do you hear? What does the air smell like? What textures can you feel? Who is with you? What are they saying? How are you standing? How are you breathing? The more sensory detail you include, the more real the experience becomes for your brain, and the more powerfully it shapes your neural pathways. The second step is connecting emotions to your visualization. This is crucial. Foroux emphasizes in Think Straight that emotion is the fuel that powers visualization. A visualization without emotion is like a car without gasoline. It might look impressive, but it is not going anywhere. When you visualize your success, you need to actually feel the emotions that would come with that success. Feel the pride of accomplishment. Feel the joy of reaching your goal. Feel the confidence of knowing you did it. Feel the gratitude for the journey that got you there. These emotions are not just pleasant additions to the exercise. They are the mechanism through which visualization actually works. Emotion tells your brain that this matters. And when your brain believes something matters, it dedicates more resources to making it happen. The third step is using your visualization as fuel for action. This is where many people go wrong. They think that visualization is a substitute for action. It is not. Visualization without action is just daydreaming. But visualization combined with action is an unstoppable force. After you visualize your desired outcome, ask yourself what concrete steps you can take today to move closer to that vision. Then take those steps. Use the clarity and motivation from your visualization to create a plan and execute it. Every small action you take in the direction of your vision sends a powerful signal to your brain. It says, "This is real. This is happening. This is not just a dream. It is a destination, and I am on my way." Now, this leads us perfectly into one of the most practical and actionable sections of Think Straight: goal setting and achievement. Because gratitude helps you appreciate where you are, and visualization helps you see where you want to go. But it is well-structured goal setting that builds the bridge between the two. Darius Foroux is very clear on this point. Dreams without goals are just fantasies. They might feel nice, but they never become real. Goals are what transform your dreams from vague wishes into concrete plans with specific milestones and deadlines. Foroux introduces a framework for goal setting that he insists upon throughout Think Straight. Goals must be clear, specific, and measurable. There is a world of difference between a desire and a goal. A desire says, "I want to be healthier." A goal says, "I will exercise for 30 minutes, 5 days a week, and reduce my sugar intake by 50% over the next 90 days. A desire says, "I want to save money." A goal says, "I will save $500 per month for the next 12 months by cutting unnecessary subscriptions and cooking at home 4 nights a week." Do you see the difference? Desires are fuzzy, vague, and easy to ignore. Goals are sharp, specific, and impossible to hide from. You either did or did not exercise for 30 minutes today. You either did or did not save $500 this month. The specificity creates accountability, and accountability creates action. Think Straight also strongly recommends writing your goals down, not typing them in your phone where they disappear behind 100 other apps. Writing them down on paper with your own hand and putting them somewhere you will see them every single day. On your bathroom mirror, on your desk, on your refrigerator, wherever you will encounter them regularly. The act of writing your goals down does something powerful to your brain. It engages multiple cognitive processes simultaneously. You are thinking about the goal, translating it into language, physically forming the letters, and creating a visual representation that you can return to again and again. Studies have shown that people who write down their goals are significantly more likely to achieve them than people who merely think about their goals. The pen is mightier than the intention. But Foroux does not stop at just setting goals. He knows that the path between setting a goal and achieving it is rarely smooth or straight. There are always obstacles. There are always setbacks. There are always moments where you feel like giving up. And this is where most people fail. Not because their goals were wrong, but because they did not have a strategy for dealing with the inevitable challenges along the way. Think Straight addresses this head-on by teaching you to anticipate obstacles before they arrive. Before you even begin pursuing a goal, sit down and think about what could go wrong. What challenges are you likely to face? What has stopped you in the past? What external circumstances might get in the way? This is not pessimism. This is strategic planning. When you anticipate obstacles in advance, you can create contingency plans for each one. And when those obstacles eventually show up, and they will, you are not caught off guard. You are prepared. You already have a plan. And that preparedness gives you an enormous advantage over people who only planned for the best-case scenario. Foroux also talks about the critical importance of flexibility. Having clear goals does not mean being rigid. Life is unpredictable. Circumstances change. New information emerges. And sometimes the path to your goal needs to take a detour. The key is to stay committed to the destination while being flexible about the route. If your original plan hits a wall, do not abandon the goal. Adjust the plan. Find a different route. Be like water flowing around obstacles instead of crashing into them and stopping. And perhaps most importantly, Think Straight teaches the art of staying motivated over the long haul, because motivation is not a constant. It ebbs and flows. Some days you wake up fired up and ready to conquer the world. Other days you can barely drag yourself out of bed. This is normal. This is human. And Foroux has practical strategies for maintaining momentum even when motivation dips. The first is celebrating small wins. Do not wait until you reach your final goal to celebrate. Celebrate every milestone along the way, every pound lost, every dollar saved, every new skill learned, every fear faced. These celebrations send a burst of dopamine to your brain, which reinforces the behaviors that led to the win and makes you more likely to continue. The second strategy is maintaining a positive mindset, even in difficult times. This does not mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It means choosing to focus on what you can control rather than what you cannot. It means looking for lessons in setbacks rather than reasons to quit. It means trusting the process even when the results have not shown up yet. The third strategy for staying motivated, and this one is incredibly powerful, is surrounding yourself with the right people. Foroux emphasizes in Think Straight that the people you spend time with have a massive influence on your thoughts, your beliefs, your energy, and ultimately, your results. If you surround yourself with people who are negative, unmotivated, and stuck, their energy will inevitably pull you down. But if you surround yourself with people who are positive, driven, supportive, and constantly growing, their energy will lift you up. You do not need 100 supporters. You need a few genuine ones. Find people who believe in your vision, who challenge you to be better, who celebrate your wins and help you through your losses. Build a community of growth-minded individuals who inspire you to keep going even when the road gets tough. Before we move on, let me tie all of this together with a thought that I think captures the essence of what Darius Foroux is teaching us in this section of Think Straight. Gratitude grounds you in the beauty of the present. Visualization propels you toward the promise of the future, and clear, well-structured goals build the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. When you combine these three practices with the understanding of neuroplasticity and the skill of self-awareness that we discussed earlier, you have a complete system for transforming your life from the inside out. You are not just thinking positively. You are thinking strategically. You are not just hoping for the best. You are engineering the best. You are using the science of your own brain to create the reality you want to live in. And that is not just powerful. That is revolutionary. In the next section, we are going to explore two more crucial areas that Think Straight addresses: building strong and meaningful relationships and mastering productivity and time management. Because no matter how powerful your mindset is, life does not happen in isolation. It happens in relationship with others and in the context of how you spend your most precious resource, your time. What we cover next will give you the tools to build the kind of connections that enrich your life and to manage your time in a way that allows you to accomplish more while actually enjoying the process. Part 4. The Connection Code and the Time Architect. Building meaningful relationships and mastering your productivity. Everything we have discussed so far has been about what happens inside your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs, your brain's ability to rewire itself, your awareness, your gratitude, your vision, your goals. And all of that is absolutely essential. But here is something that Darius Foroux makes unmistakably clear in Think Straight. You do not live inside your mind. You live in the world. A world filled with other people. A world where your success, your happiness, and your fulfillment depend not just on what you think, but on how you connect with others and how you spend your time. Because you could have the most powerful mindset on the planet, but if your relationships are toxic and your time management is chaotic, you will still feel frustrated, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled. Mindset is the foundation, but relationships and productivity are the walls and roof that turn that foundation into a home you actually want to live in. So let us start with relationships, and I want to begin with a truth that might be uncomfortable for some of you to hear. The quality of your life is largely determined by the quality of your relationships, not your bank account, not your job title, not the car you drive or the house you live in. Your relationships. Study after study has confirmed this. The longest-running study on human happiness, conducted by Harvard over more than 80 years, found that the single biggest predictor of long-term health and happiness was not wealth, fame, or career achievement. It was the quality of a person's close relationships. People with strong, meaningful connections lived longer, stayed healthier, and reported significantly higher levels of life satisfaction than people who were wealthy but isolated. Think about that for a moment. The most comprehensive study on human happiness ever conducted found that relationships matter more than money, more than success, more than anything else. Darius Foroux takes this research seriously in Think Straight and dedicates significant attention to the art of building and maintaining strong relationships. And he starts with what he considers the cornerstone of every healthy relationship: effective communication. Now, communication might seem like a basic topic. We all communicate every day. We talk, we text, we email, we post. But Foroux draws a critical distinction between merely exchanging words and truly communicating. True communication is not just about transmitting information. It is about creating understanding. It is about making the other person feel heard, valued, and respected. And most people, if they are being honest with themselves, are not very good at it. Think Straight outlines several principles of effective communication that can transform your relationships almost immediately. The first is clarity and honesty. Express your thoughts and feelings clearly and truthfully. Do not expect people to read your mind. Do not drop hints and then get frustrated when people do not pick up on them. Say what you mean and mean what you say. This does not mean being brutally blunt or insensitive. It means being authentic and direct while still being kind. There is a huge difference between saying "you never listened to me," which is an accusation that puts the other person on the defensive, and saying "I feel unheard sometimes, and I would love it if we could find a way to communicate better," which is an honest expression of your feelings that invites collaboration rather than conflict. The second principle Foroux emphasizes is active listening, and this is where most people fall short. Active listening is not just staying quiet while the other person talks. It is not just waiting for your turn to speak. Active listening means genuinely focusing on what the other person is saying, trying to understand not just their words, but the emotions and intentions behind those words. It means putting down your phone, making eye contact, and giving the other person your full attention. It means asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you heard, and resisting the urge to immediately jump in with your own opinions or solutions. When someone feels truly listened to, it creates a level of trust and intimacy that transforms the relationship. People do not just want to be heard. They want to feel heard. And there is a world of difference between the two. The third communication principle in Think Straight is showing empathy without judgment. This means making a genuine effort to understand another person's perspective and emotions, even when you disagree with them. Empathy does not mean you have to agree with everyone about everything. It means you acknowledge that their experience is valid, that their feelings are real, and that their perspective has value. When you approach conversations with empathy instead of judgment, something remarkable happens. Walls come down, defenses dissolve, people open up, and genuine connection becomes possible. On the other hand, when people feel judged, they shut down. They become defensive, they stop sharing, and the relationship starts to erode from the inside. The fourth principle is using positive body language. Foroux reminds us in Think Straight that communication is not just verbal. In fact, research suggests that a huge percentage of communication is nonverbal. Your posture, your facial expressions, your gestures, your eye contact, your tone of voice, all of these send powerful messages that can either reinforce or contradict your words. You can say, "I am happy to see you," while your arms are crossed, your eyes are on your phone, and your voice is flat. But the other person will believe your body language, not your words. So be intentional about the nonverbal signals you send. Face people when they speak. Maintain comfortable eye contact. Keep your posture open and relaxed. Let your facial expressions match your words. These small adjustments in body language can dramatically improve the quality of every conversation you have. Now, Foroux goes deeper than just communication skills. Think Straight also addresses one of the most challenging aspects of any relationship: conflict resolution. Because no matter how strong your communication skills are, conflict is inevitable in any meaningful relationship. Two people with different experiences, perspectives, needs, and desires are going to disagree sometimes. That is not a sign that the relationship is broken. It is a sign that the relationship involves two real complex human beings. The question is not whether conflict will happen, but how you handle it when it does. Think Straight offers a framework for resolving conflicts in a way that actually strengthens relationships rather than damaging them. The first step is to stay calm. When emotions run high, rational thinking shuts down. You say things you do not mean. You make accusations. You bring up old grievances that have nothing to do with the current situation. So before engaging in a difficult conversation, take a moment to calm yourself down. Breathe deeply. Count to 10. Go for a short walk if you need to. Whatever it takes to bring your emotional temperature down to a level where you can think clearly and communicate constructively. The second step is to try to see the situation from the other person's perspective. This goes back to empathy. Even if you believe you are right, make a genuine effort to understand why the other person sees things differently. What experiences have shaped their perspective? What fears or needs might be driving their behavior? When you approach conflict with genuine curiosity about the other person's point of view, you often discover that the disagreement is not as deep as it initially appeared. The third step is to work together to find a solution. Conflict resolution is not about winning. It is not about proving that you are right and the other person is wrong. It is about finding a path forward that respects both people's needs and strengthens the relationship. This requires compromise, flexibility, and a willingness to let go of the need to be right. And the fourth step, which Foroux considers one of the most powerful relationship tools in existence, is understanding the power of apology and forgiveness. Admitting when you are wrong and sincerely apologizing takes courage, but it builds trust and respect in ways that nothing else can. And extending forgiveness, even when it is difficult, releases you from the prison of resentment and allows the relationship to heal and grow. Holding on to grudges does not punish the other person. It punishes you. It keeps you anchored to pain, replaying old hurts, and living in the past instead of building the future. Forgiveness is not saying that what happened was okay. It is saying that you refuse to let what happened control the rest of your life. Think Straight also talks about the importance of proactively nurturing your relationships, not just fixing them when they break. Be kind and generous with your time, attention, and appreciation. Compliment the people you care about. Tell them specifically what you value about them. Spend quality time together doing things you both enjoy. Learn new things together. Grow together. Support each other's dreams. These acts of intentional relationship building might seem small in the moment, but they compound over time into deep, unshakable bonds that enrich every area of your life. Now let us shift to the second major topic of this section, and it is one that affects every single person regardless of their age, career, or lifestyle: productivity and time management. Darius Foroux is passionate about this topic, and in Think Straight, he provides a framework for managing your time that is both practical and transformative. Because here is a truth that most people do not want to hear. You do not have a time problem. You have a priority problem. Everyone on this planet gets the same 24 hours in a day. The President of the United States gets 24 hours. A billionaire CEO gets 24 hours. A struggling college student gets 24 hours. And you get 24 hours. The difference between people who accomplish extraordinary things and people who feel like they never have enough time is not the amount of time they have. It is how they choose to use it. The foundation of Foroux's productivity system in Think Straight is prioritization, and he presents a remarkably clear method for deciding what deserves your time and what does not. He suggests categorizing every task into 4 groups. Category A: tasks are both important and urgent. These are things that absolutely must be done and must be done soon. A deadline at work, a medical appointment, a critical bill that needs to be paid. These tasks cannot be postponed and should always be handled first. Category B tasks are important but not urgent. These are things that matter for your long-term success and well-being, but do not have an immediate deadline. Things like exercising, reading, learning a new skill, nurturing relationships, strategic planning. These tasks are where most of your growth happens, but because they are not urgent, most people constantly push them aside in favor of more pressing but less important things. This is one of the biggest productivity mistakes you can make. Category C tasks are urgent but not very important. These are things that demand your immediate attention, but do not actually contribute much to your goals or happiness. Many emails, phone calls, and minor requests from others fall into this category, and Category D tasks are neither important nor urgent. Social media scrolling, excessive news consumption, gossip, mindless entertainment. These are the black holes of productivity. They swallow your time without giving you anything meaningful in return. Foroux's advice in Think Straight is straightforward. Handle your A tasks first, then dedicate focused time to your B tasks. Delegate or quickly handle C tasks, and eliminate or drastically reduce D tasks. Most people do the opposite. They spend their days drowning in C and D tasks, wonder why they feel so busy yet so unproductive, and never get around to the B tasks that would actually transform their lives. If you simply flipped this pattern and started giving your best energy to your most important work, you would be astonished at how much more you accomplish and how much better you feel about how you spend your time. The next major productivity principle in Think Straight is eliminating distractions. And let me be direct with you about this. Distractions are the silent assassins of productivity. They do not announce themselves with alarm bells and flashing lights. They slip in quietly, steal your focus for just a second, and before you know it, an hour has passed and you have accomplished nothing. Foroux identifies two types of distractions that you need to be aware of. External distractions are things in your environment that pull your attention away from your work. Your phone buzzing with notifications, social media apps calling your name, the television playing in the background, noise from your environment, colleagues stopping by your desk to chat. Internal distractions are things happening inside your mind that pull your attention away. Worries about the future, regrets about the past, random thoughts that pop up and send you down mental rabbit holes, that feeling of restlessness or boredom that makes you reach for your phone even when you know you should be working. Think Straight offers specific countermeasures for both types. For external distractions, put your phone on silent mode, or better yet, put it in another room entirely. Block social media apps during your work hours. Create a quiet, dedicated workspace. Use noise-canceling headphones if your environment is loud. Let people know when you are in focused work mode and cannot be interrupted. For internal distractions, create a to-do list at the beginning of each day, so your tasks are externalized and your mind does not have to keep track of everything. Practice mindfulness to develop your ability to notice when your attention has wandered and bring it back, and address underlying anxieties and worries during dedicated reflection time rather than letting them intrude on your productive hours. The third productivity principle that Foroux explores in Think Straight is working efficiently. This is about getting more done in less time, not by rushing or cutting corners, but by working smarter. One of his strongest recommendations is to stop multitasking. Despite what many people believe, multitasking does not make you more productive. It makes you less productive. When you try to do multiple things at once, your brain is not actually doing them simultaneously. It is rapidly switching between tasks, and every switch costs you time, energy, and mental resources. Research has shown that multitasking can reduce your productivity by as much as 40%. Instead, practice single tasking. Give your full attention to one task at a time. Complete it or reach a natural stopping point, and then move on to the next one. You will be amazed at how much faster you work and how much better the quality of your output is when you give each task your undivided attention. Foroux also recommends taking regular short breaks to maintain your energy and focus throughout the day. Working for hours without a break might feel productive, but your brain cannot sustain high-level focus indefinitely. After a certain point, your concentration starts to decline, your decision-making gets worse, and your creativity drops off. Taking a 5 to 10 minute break every hour or so allows your brain to rest and recharge, so when you return to your work, you are operating at full capacity again. Go for a short walk, stretch, get some fresh air, have a glass of water. Do something that gives your mind a genuine break from the work. Then come back refreshed and ready to focus. Think Straight also introduces two powerful productivity concepts that can change the way you approach your work. The first is Parkinson's Law, which states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. In other words, if you give yourself a week to complete a task that could be done in 2 days, it will take you the full week. Your brain paces itself based on the deadline you set. So the solution is to set tighter deadlines. Challenge yourself to complete tasks in less time than you think they require. You will often find that you can do work much faster than you assumed, especially when you eliminate distractions and focus with intensity. The second concept is the 2-minute rule. If a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. Do not add it to your to-do list. Do not schedule it for later. Do not think about it and come back to it. Just do it right now. Responding to a quick email, putting a dish in the dishwasher, sending a brief message, filing a document. These tiny tasks take almost no time to complete, but when you let them pile up, they create mental clutter that weighs you down and makes everything feel more overwhelming than it actually is. Knocking them out immediately keeps your mental space clear and your momentum flowing. Foroux adds additional wisdom and thinks straight about sustaining productivity over the long term. He encourages regular review sessions where you look back at your work, assess what went well and what did not, and make adjustments for the future. He advocates for setting small daily goals that you can realistically accomplish, because the sense of completion you get from crossing items off your list fuels further productivity. He recommends asking for help when you need it, because trying to do everything yourself is not strength, it is inefficiency. And he emphasizes the importance of maintaining a positive and optimistic attitude even when your workload feels heavy, because your mental state directly affects your ability to perform. Now let me tie these two seemingly different topics, relationships and productivity, together in a way that Darius Foroux does brilliantly in Think Straight, because they are far more connected than most people realize. Your relationships affect your productivity, and your productivity affects your relationships. If your relationships are strained and full of conflict, you carry that emotional weight into your work. You cannot focus. You cannot think clearly. Your energy is drained before you even start your tasks. On the other hand, if you are so consumed by work that you neglect your relationships, those relationships begin to deteriorate, which creates stress and guilt that further undermines your productivity. It becomes a vicious cycle. But when you get both right, when you build strong, supportive relationships and manage your time with intention and discipline, a beautiful, positive cycle emerges. Your relationships give you the emotional energy and support you need to be productive. And your productivity gives you the sense of accomplishment and progress that makes you a better, more present, more positive partner, friend, and colleague. The two reinforce each other endlessly. This is why Foroux insists that thinking straight is not just about any one area of life. It is about creating alignment across all areas of life. Your thoughts, your relationships, your time, your goals, they are all interconnected. And when you bring conscious, intentional thinking to each of these areas, the combined effect is far greater than the sum of its parts. Before we move to the final section, I want you to pause and think about two things. First, think about one relationship in your life that could benefit from the communication and conflict resolution principles we discussed. Who is that person? What would change if you showed up with more empathy, more active listening, and more honest communication. And second, think about one productivity habit that is costing you time and energy. Is it constant phone checking? Is it multitasking? Is it failing to prioritize? Whatever it is, imagine what your days would look like if you eliminated that one habit and replaced it with a more intentional approach. These are not hypothetical questions. These are invitations to real change. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, still thinking about how to improve your life, tells me that you are exactly the kind of person who will actually take action on what you are learning. In the final section, we are going to cover two more critical areas from Think Straight that Darius Foroux believes are essential for a truly well-lived life: financial management and overall health and wellness. These are the areas where clear thinking meets real-world results, where the principles you have learned throughout this journey come together to create lasting, tangible transformation. Let us finish strong. Part 5: The Wealth Within and the Body That Carries You. Financial Wisdom, Health Mastery, and the Final Blueprint for a Life Well Lived. We have come a long way together on this journey. We started by uncovering the invisible power of your thoughts and how they shape every aspect of your reality. We explored the science of neuroplasticity and discovered that your brain is not a fixed machine, but a living, evolving organ that you can reshape at any age. We developed the skill of self-awareness, learning to observe our thoughts instead of being controlled by them. We unlocked the transformative practices of gratitude and visualization. We set clear, measurable goals and built strategies for overcoming the obstacles that inevitably appear along the way. We strengthened our relationships through better communication, empathy, and conflict resolution. And we mastered the art of productivity and time management so that every hour of our day is spent with intention and purpose. But we are not done yet, because there are two more areas of life where clear thinking makes an enormous difference. And Darius Foroux addresses both of them in Think Straight, with the same practical, no-nonsense wisdom that makes this book so valuable. Those two areas are your finances and your health. And I would argue that without getting these two areas right, everything else we have discussed remains incomplete. Let us start with financial management. Now, Think Straight is not a finance book. Foroux is very clear about that. He is not going to teach you stock-picking strategies or complex investment formulas. But what he does teach is something far more fundamental and arguably far more important. He teaches you how to think clearly about money. Because here is a truth that most financial experts will not tell you. The biggest obstacle between you and financial security is not your income level. It is not the economy. It is not inflation or interest rates. The biggest obstacle is the way you think about money. Your financial life is a direct reflection of your financial thoughts, beliefs, and habits. And if those thoughts, beliefs, and habits are confused, fearful, or undisciplined, no amount of income will save you. There are people earning six figures who are drowning in debt, and there are people earning modest salaries who are building real wealth. The difference is not in the numbers. The difference is in the thinking. Think Straight encourages you to start your financial transformation by setting clear financial goals. And this connects directly to the goal-setting principles we discussed earlier. Vague financial wishes like, I want to be rich or I want to have more money are not goals. They are fantasies. A real financial goal is specific, measurable, and time-bound. I will pay off my credit card debt of $8,000 within the next 18 months by making extra payments of $500 per month. I will build an emergency fund of $10,000 within the next 2 years by automatically transferring $400 into a savings account every month. I will save enough for a down payment on a house within the next 5 years by reducing my monthly discretionary spending by 30% and investing the difference. These are real goals. They have numbers, they have deadlines, they have specific actions attached to them, and when you write them down and review them regularly, they become powerful drivers of financial behavior change. The second principle Foroux applies to financial management is the importance of informed decision-making. Too many people make financial decisions based on emotion rather than logic. They buy things impulsively because shopping gives them a temporary emotional boost. They avoid looking at their bank statements because the numbers make them anxious. They invest based on tips from friends or trending social media posts rather than doing their own research. They take on debt without fully understanding the terms and consequences. Think Straight urges you to bring the same rational, clear-headed thinking to your finances that you are learning to apply to every other area of your life. Before making any significant financial decision, pause. Research your options thoroughly. Compare financial products and services. Understand the terms, the fees, the risks, and the potential returns. Do not let fear, excitement, or peer pressure drive your financial choices. Let logic, research, and your clearly defined goals be your guides. Foroux also addresses one of the most common financial traps that keeps people stuck: emotional spending. This is when you spend money not because you need something, but because you are trying to fill an emotional void. You are stressed, so you go shopping. You are sad, so you order an expensive meal. You feel inadequate, so you buy something flashy to make yourself feel better. The purchase gives you a momentary hit of pleasure, but it fades quickly, leaving you with less money and the same unresolved emotions. This cycle can be devastating over time, and Think Straight teaches you to break it by applying the self-awareness techniques we discussed earlier. When you feel the urge to spend impulsively, pause and ask yourself, what emotion is driving this urge? Am I buying this because I genuinely need it and it aligns with my financial goals? Or am I buying it to soothe an emotion that would be better addressed in another way? This simple moment of self-reflection can save you thousands of dollars over the course of a year and fundamentally change your relationship with money. Think Straight also takes on the topic of debt management with characteristic directness. Foroux understands that debt is one of the heaviest psychological burdens a person can carry. It creates constant stress, limits your options, and can make you feel trapped and hopeless. But he also knows that debt is not a death sentence. It is a problem, and like any problem, it can be solved with clear thinking and disciplined action. The first step is to face your debt honestly. Many people avoid even looking at the total amount they owe because the number feels too scary. But avoidance does not make debt disappear. It makes it grow. So pull out every statement every balance, every interest rate, and put the full picture in front of you. Yes, it might be uncomfortable, but that discomfort is temporary. The freedom that comes from finally facing reality and taking control is permanent. Once you know exactly what you owe, create a concrete repayment plan. Prioritize high-interest debt first because it grows the fastest. Look for ways to reduce interest rates, whether through balance transfers, refinancing, or negotiation with creditors. Cut unnecessary expenses and redirect that money toward debt repayment. Look for additional income sources, even temporary ones, to accelerate the process. And if the situation feels overwhelming, do not hesitate to seek professional help. Financial advisors and debt counselors exist specifically to help people navigate these challenges. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. Beyond Debt Management, Think Straight lays out principles for long-term financial health. Build the habit of regular saving even if you start with a small amount. The habit matters more than the amount in the beginning, because once the habit is established, the amounts will naturally increase over time. Explore investment options that align with your risk tolerance and financial goals. Educate yourself about basic investment vehicles like mutual funds, index funds, and stocks. You do not need to become a financial expert, but you do need to understand enough to make informed decisions about where your money goes. Track your expenses so you know exactly where your money is flowing each month. You might be shocked to discover how much money slips through the cracks on things you barely notice or care about. That awareness alone can free up significant resources for savings and investment. Foroux also emphasizes something that connects beautifully to the broader themes of Think Straight. Take responsibility for your financial life. Stop blaming external circumstances for your financial situation. Yes, the economy is challenging. Yes, costs are rising. Yes, the system is not always fair. All of that is true, but within those constraints, you still have choices. You still have agency. And the moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your financial circumstances and start seeing yourself as the architect of your financial future, everything shifts. Your thinking changes, your behavior changes, and over time, your results change. Keep a long-term perspective. Do not chase quick profits or get rich-quick schemes. Real wealth is built slowly, steadily, through consistent habits and disciplined decision-making over years and decades. It is not glamorous. It is not exciting, but it works, and it lasts. Now let us transition to the final major topic that Darius Foroux covers in Think Straight, and it is arguably the most fundamental one of all, your health. Because everything we have talked about, your thoughts, your goals, your relationships, your finances, your productivity, all of it depends on one thing, you being alive and well enough to pursue it. Your health is not just another area of life to optimize. It is the platform on which your entire life is built. Without it, nothing else matters. With it, everything else becomes possible. Foroux takes a holistic view of health in Think Straight, addressing physical health, mental health, and emotional well-being as interconnected dimensions of a single whole. And he starts with something that affects every single person in the modern world: stress management. Because stress is not just an inconvenience. Chronic, unmanaged stress is a genuine threat to your health, your happiness, and your longevity. It weakens your immune system. It increases your risk of heart disease, diabetes, and dozens of other serious conditions. It impairs your memory and cognitive function. It disrupts your sleep. It damages your relationships. It destroys your productivity. In short, stress is a silent killer that slowly erodes every dimension of your well-being if left unchecked. Think Straight teaches you to manage stress by first understanding where it comes from. Most people feel stressed without ever stopping to identify the specific sources of that stress. They just feel this vague, constant pressure and accept it as an unavoidable part of life. But Foroux encourages you to get specific. What exactly is causing your stress? Is it your workload? Is it a relationship conflict? Is it financial pressure? Is it health concerns? Is it uncertainty about the future? When you pinpoint the specific sources of your stress, you can start addressing them directly instead of just suffering under their weight. Some stressors can be eliminated entirely. Some can be reduced through better planning and boundary setting, and some cannot be changed, but your response to them can be transformed through the mindfulness and self-awareness techniques we have already discussed. Foroux recommends several healthy stress management practices. Deep breathing exercises activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's natural relaxation response. Even just 5 minutes of slow, deep breathing can significantly reduce your stress levels and bring your nervous system back to a calm, balanced state. Regular meditation, as we discussed earlier, builds your capacity to observe stress without being overwhelmed by it. Physical exercise is one of the most powerful stress relievers available, releasing endorphins that naturally improve your mood and reduce anxiety. Yoga combines physical movement with breath work and mindfulness, making it an especially effective stress management tool. And simply spending time in nature has been shown to lower cortisol levels and promote a sense of calm and well-being. Think Straight also devotes significant attention to sleep, which Foroux considers one of the most underrated factors in overall health and performance. In a culture that glorifies hustle and celebrates people who sleep 4 hours a night, Foroux pushes back with science and common sense. Sleep is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity. During sleep, your brain processes the day's information, consolidates memories, repairs neural pathways, and clears out metabolic waste products. Without adequate sleep, your cognitive function deteriorates rapidly. Your decision-making gets worse. Your emotional regulation suffers. Your creativity drops. Your immune system weakens. And your risk of serious health problems increases dramatically. Foroux offers practical strategies for improving your sleep quality. Establish a consistent sleep schedule by going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, even on weekends. This trains your body's internal clock and makes falling asleep and waking up much easier. Create a relaxing pre-sleep routine that signals to your body that it is time to wind down. This might include taking a warm bath, reading a book, listening to calm music, or doing some gentle stretching. Make your sleep environment as comfortable as possible. Keep your bedroom dark, quiet, and cool. Invest in a comfortable mattress and pillows, and limit your intake of caffeine and alcohol, especially in the hours before bedtime. Caffeine is a stimulant that can stay in your system for hours, keeping you wired when you should be winding down. And while alcohol might make you feel sleepy initially, It actually disrupts your sleep quality and prevents you from getting the deep, restorative sleep your body and brain need. Beyond stress management and sleep, Think Straight addresses the broader foundations of physical and mental health. Eat a balanced, nutritious diet that gives your body the fuel it needs to function at its best. Your brain consumes roughly 20% of your total caloric intake, so what you eat directly affects how well you think. A diet rich in whole foods, vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and healthy fats supports optimal brain function, stable energy levels, and emotional balance. A diet heavy in processed foods, sugar, and artificial ingredients does the opposite. It creates energy crashes, brain fog, mood swings, and long-term health problems. You do not need to follow a perfect diet. You just need to make more intentional choices more often. Every meal is an opportunity to either nourish your body and brain or deplete them. Regular physical exercise is another non-negotiable in Foroux's framework. Exercise is not just about looking good or losing weight. It is about building a body and brain that can support the life you want to live. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, which improves cognitive function and memory. It releases endorphins and serotonin, which naturally elevate your mood and reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. It builds physical resilience, energy, and stamina. It improves sleep quality. It reduces the risk of virtually every major disease. And it builds confidence and self-esteem as you see yourself getting stronger and more capable over time. You do not need to run marathons or spend hours in the gym. Find a form of movement you enjoy and do it consistently. Walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, hiking, yoga, strength training, whatever, gets you moving and makes you feel good. The best exercise is the one you will actually do. Think Straight also reminds us of the critical importance of social connection for our overall health. This brings us full circle back to the relationships we discussed in the previous section. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures. We are wired for connection, and when we lack meaningful social bonds, our health suffers in measurable, significant ways. Loneliness and social isolation have been shown to be as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. They increase inflammation, weaken immune function, and dramatically increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, depression, and early death. So maintaining and nurturing your social connections is not just nice for your emotional well-being. It is essential for your physical survival. And finally, Foroux emphasizes the importance of emotional expression. Do not suppress your emotions. Do not bottle them up inside and pretend everything is fine. Find healthy ways to express what you are feeling. Talk to someone you trust. Write in your journal. Create art. Move your body. Cry when you need to cry. Laugh when you need to laugh. Emotions are not weaknesses to be hidden. They are signals to be acknowledged. And when you learn to express them in healthy ways, you release the pressure that builds up inside and create space for genuine peace and well-being. Now, as we reach the end of this journey through the wisdom of Think Straight, I want to take a moment to bring everything together. Because the genius of Darius Foroux's approach is not in any single principle or technique. It is in the way all of these principles work together as an integrated system for living a better life. It starts with your thoughts. Your thoughts create your beliefs. Your beliefs drive your actions. Your actions produce your results. and your results shape the life you live. If you want to change your life, you have to start at the source. You have to start with your thoughts. That is why the book is called Think Straight. Not act straight, or feel straight, or succeed straight. Think straight. Because everything begins in the mind. When you think straight, you recognize and dismantle the limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. You harness the power of neuroplasticity to rewire your brain for success and happiness. You develop the self-awareness to catch negative thought patterns before they spiral out of control. You practice gratitude that grounds you in the beauty of the present moment. You use visualization to create a compelling vision of the future you want to build. You set clear, measurable goals and pursue them with discipline and flexibility. You build strong, meaningful relationships through honest communication, empathy, and mutual respect. You manage your time and energy with intention and purpose. You make wise financial decisions that create security and freedom. And you take care of your physical, mental, and emotional health so that you have the vitality and resilience to sustain all of this for the long term. This is not about being perfect. Foroux never asks you to be perfect. Perfection is another limiting belief, another impossible standard that keeps people stuck. This is about being intentional. It is about waking up each day and choosing to direct your thoughts, your energy, and your actions toward the life you want to create. Some days you will do this brilliantly. Other days you will stumble, fall back into old patterns, and feel like you have made no progress at all. That is okay. That is part of the journey. What matters is that you keep choosing, you keep redirecting, you keep showing up, because every single thought you think is a vote for the person you are becoming. And over time, those votes add up into a life that is richer, more meaningful, and more fulfilling than anything you thought possible. So here is my challenge to you as we wrap up. Do not let this be just another video you watched and forgot about by tomorrow. Take at least one principle from everything we have discussed and put it into action today. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, today. Maybe you'll start a gratitude journal tonight. Maybe you identify one limiting belief and write down a replacement belief. Maybe you put your phone in another room and do an hour of focused, distraction-free work. Maybe you have an honest conversation with someone you have been avoiding. Maybe you sit quietly for 10 minutes and simply observe your thoughts. Whatever it is, take one step, because one step leads to another, and before you know it, you are living a completely different life. A life you designed, a life you chose, a life that reflects the very best of who you are and who you are capable of becoming. Darius Foroux wrote, "Think straight," to give people the tools to take control of their minds and, through that, take control of their lives. And now those tools are in your hands. The question is no longer whether change is possible. The science has answered that question definitively. Change is absolutely possible. Your brain can rewire itself. Your beliefs can be transformed. Your habits can be rebuilt. Your relationships can be strengthened. Your finances can be sorted. Your health can be restored. All of it is within your reach. The only question that remains is the one that only you can answer. Will you do it? Will you take what you have learned today and actually apply it? I believe you will, because you are still here. You stayed until the very end. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you are and the kind of life you are determined to build. Now go out there and think straight. Your future self will thank you for it.